Good day, everyone. So for this week's lesson is we're going to talk about reason and impartiality as a minimum requirement for morality. So, nung midterm is during lesson 1 is I have already discussed what reason and impartiality is. So, why does ethics has reason and impartiality, and why thus we have to talk about it over and over again. So during our midterm is I literally just defined the two of them. So define ko lang sila, I cite some examples. So as kung ano nga ba or and sinabi ko dun or dinescuss ko kung ano nga ba yung connection nila when it comes to morality. But this time is we're going to dig in deeper what reason and impartiality is. And ano nga ba yung papel nila when it comes to morality. So let's have a recap first with our discussion last time. So by the way, my name is Miss Joy M. Sumagang. Sa mga hindi pa po nakakakilala sa akin. So I will be your instructor in ethics or GNED 02. So revisions, or we're going to go back with our previous topic. So our first topic is about feelings and moral decisions. So how does feelings affect our decisions? And how does ethical subjectivism, or how does feelings and emotion of a person could affect or could be an obstruction in our decision making. So these two theories is I have already talked about you last time. So ethical subjectivism and emotivism. So isa lang naman ng aim ng goal na to or ng to na to is ipaliwanag kung bakit nagiging obstruction when it comes to decision making yung feelings ng isang tao. Kasi both of them were always saying that our feelings should come first without noticing the other parties or the different aspects na kailangan natin i-consider when it comes to decision making. So, for this time is, syempre, hindi lang dapat palaging feelings natin yung umiiral. Syempre, our feelings would be invalid or would not be valid when it comes to decision making, lalo na kung hindi natin sasamahan or i-apply si reason. So, syempre, every human being has a feelings. We all know that. We all have emotions. We all have, or we also have feelings. Hindi lang literally the sense of touch. But, tinutukoy ko dito yung damdamin natin or yung emotions natin as a person. So, syempre, kalakip ng ating responsibility when it comes to our feelings is the reason behind it. So, having a responsible usage of feelings when it comes to decision making is kasama yung ating reason. So, emotions and reasons always come hand in hand. Ayan. So, syempre, hindi lang naman dapat feelings lang yung pinapagana natin. So, syempre, we have to use our reasoning or we have to listen to the reasons that meron when it comes to that certain kind of situation or event. So, let us define reason. So, reason, it is the basis or motive for an action, decision, of conviction. Ayan. So, ito yung nagiging batayan ng ating way of actions. Or, ito yung batayan, why do we have to choose this kind of decision? So next one, it helps us to evaluate whether our feelings and intuitions about moral cases are correct and defensible. Siyempre, through reason, nalalaman natin kung ano yung facts. Nalalaman natin what is lie. And through reason, nalalaman din natin kung ano pa yung mga bagay na dapat nating i-consider when it comes to decision making. And kung yung ating bang intuition or yung feelings na nararamdaman natin is tama ba siya? And reason helps us to validate more our feelings. And it helps us na syempre, dito sa taong to, feeling ko, ano to? ganito yung ugali niya. Siyempre, you have to know first the reason kung bakit nagkakaganon yung tao na yun. Another example. Ayan. So, another example. Bakit sa perspective namin mga teachers, bakit kaya ang isang estudyante is bumabagsak siya? Siyempre, sabihin na natin, ay, feeling ko ano siya, hindi siya nag-aaral. Feeling ko, pagdating sa bahay niya, nag-ML lang siya. Or feeling ko, hindi siya uma-attend ng online classes. But, with reason, yung isang certain situation na yun is na-validate natin or na-evaluate natin. Na, knowing kung ano ba yung process or ano ba yung mga bagay na nangyayari doon sa estudyante na yun, bakit siya bumagsak or bakit siya bumabagsak. So, yun, reasons would be, syempre, may iba pa pala siyang ginagawa bukod sa pag-aaral. Hindi siya nakaka-attend ng online classes kasi nasa trabaho siya. Kailangan niya mag-provide for his family or her family. Ayan. So on and so forth. So it helps us to validate more of the situation so as it helps us to correct and make the intuitions or make our conclusions defensible. Na mas valid siya, na mas may laban tayo because of reason. So, syempre, hindi mawawala. Pag may reason, hindi mawawala si impartiality. Kasi most of our feelings, once na sinamahan natin siya ng reason, we could be biased. So, impartiality, it involves the idea that each individual's interest and point of view is equally important. So, last time, I have seen or napansin ko dun sa mga estudyante ko or yung iba sa inyo na habang nag-check ako ng inyong midterm and nag-check ako ng long quiz nyo, ang impartiality and si reason is na pagsasama nyo sila. Magkaiba po sila. Si reason, ito yung nagdidig in deeper kung ano nga ba yung mga bagay na nangyari at bakit yun yung dapat natin maging decision. Literally, naghahanap siya ng rason. Si impartiality, ito yung nagwe-weigh in or ito yung tumitimbang sa ating reason, sa ating mga rason. And sa impartiality class, ito yung tinatawag nating fair-mindedness or even-handedness. Ayan ha. Si impartiality, si fair-mindedness or even-handedness. Kasi last time, napansin ko na si reason is ginawa niyo pong fair-mindedness and even-handedness. Hindi po. Si impartiality yun. So, true impartiality is nawi-weigh in natin yung ating iba't ibang reasons. So, another one is that ang impartiality, it is a principle of justice holding the decisions is based on an objective criteria rather than the basis of biases, preferring the benefit to one person over another to one person for improper reason and prejudice. So for example, syempre, through impartiality na e-evaluate natin yung different reasons na yon. And it also helps us to eliminate the different biases through that reason. Syempre, when we have choices or we have different certain kind of reasons, syempre kailangan natin i-weigh in yon. Alin ba doon yung valid at alin ba doon yung hindi valid? Alin ba doon yung bias at hindi bias na decision? And another one, it helps us to eliminate the different prejudices. So, syempre, merong reason kasi na bias din. Na reason na magbe-benefit, it's either yung isang tao or magbe-benefit ka. Diba? So, ayun. So, true impartiality is nalilesen yung mga ganong types of biases when it comes to reasoning. It also avoids, ulitin ko ulit, the prejudices. Ayan. So, we have here the 7-step moral reasoning. So, sa 7-step moral reasoning, dito nyo po ma-realize yung gamit ng reason and impartiality when it comes to morality. And why does why is it, or why there is a reason and impartiality in ethics? Gaano nga ba kahalaga ang reason and impartiality pagdating sa ethics? So class, 7-step moral reasoning, ang proponent niya po is si Scott B. Ray. So eto po ha, Scott B. Ray. Ulitin ko. Ilalagay ko na lang siya sa description box below. So ayan. So si Scott B. Ray, siya yung nag-propose, or siya yung proponent ng 7-step moral reasoning model. Ayan. And syempre, it suggested or introduces the use of reason and impartiality when it comes to decision making and moral matters. Ayan. So, pinapresent niya doon na paano nga ba natin magagamit yung reasoning or yung reason and impartiality pagdating sa decision making. And it helps us to understand or mas scrutinize natin furthermore yung isang problem or yung isang case. So yan. I have here the 7-step moral reasoning model. So ayan. So as you can see, ang kanyang pattern is pa ganito po. Ayan. Para hindi kayo malito. Mga hindi nakakapansin. So first one, our first step is we have to gather the facts. So it is the indispensable first step prior to ethical analysis and reflection on the case. Syempre naman, hindi ka pwedeng mag-proceed into making a decision kung hindi mo alam yung nangyayari at hindi mo alam yung fact about dun sa case. So, syempre, you have first to dig in with, or you have to gather first the facts. Ano ba yung different things surrounding dun sa isang case na yun? So, for example is yung case ng vaccines. So, syempre, before you take the vaccine or you take yung medicine na yun, yung isang gamot na yun is you have first to gather the facts. So, what type of facts? So, yun ba ay nakakasama sa'yo? Or it would gain you more? Ikaw ba ay high risk pagka uminom ka nito or hindi? Meron ba itong malaking side effects sa'yo or wala? Diba? So, yun mga yung different facts na we have to consider. Yun na, based on my example. So, next one, determine the ethical issues. So, moral issues should be correctly stated in terms of competing interests. So, meaning to say, we have to determine what are the different ethical issues that may arise on that certain situation. Syempre, hindi natin maiiwasan sa isang case na may mag-arise na ethical issues. So that's why we're going to use the 7-step moral reasoning in that certain kind of cases. And syempre, you have to identify the different issues there, no? And after identifying the different issues there, you also have to identify the different rules or principles that have bearing on the case. Ano ba yung mga principles na sakop or ethical principles na sakop nung case na yon or sakop ng ethical issues na yon? So, alin ba doon yung sakop at hindi niya sakop? So, next one, list the alternatives. So, alternatives is also term or also known as the choices. So what are the different choices or what are the different ideas that you've come up after you identify the principles na may bearing dun sa case? And list of alternatives involves coming up with the different alternative courses of actions as part of creative thinking, including in resolving a moral dilemma. Sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, it is the choices that you've discovered na galing dito sa tatlong to. So after that, you have list of alternatives, you have to compare the alternatives with the principles. So, like for example is, it involves eliminating, wait lang pala. It involves eliminating the alternative according to the moral principle that have bearing on the cases. Siyempre, hindi ka lang dapat maglilist ng mga choices na kailangan mo. Siyempre, kailangan mo na i-compare kung yung mga choices mo ba na yun is applicable siya dun sa moral principle na meron ka or moral principle na meron ang isang society. Siyempre, hindi lang naman talaga dapat choices lang yung meron tayo. We have to reject them. And ano nga ba yung mga ethical principles na nasasakop nun at hindi nasasakop nun. Next one is you have to weigh in the consequences. So in weighing in the consequences, titingnan mo kung ilan ba doon yung positive and ilan ba doon yung negative na pwedeng mangyari. If ever na yung options na yun yung iyong gamitin. So for example, you have 4 options. You've come up with 4 alternatives. So yun dun sa 4 alternatives na yun, when you compare it to the moral principles that you have, is may nakita kang yun dun sa dalawang choice mo is meron kang 2 discrepancy. So you have to eliminate the 2 discrepancy na yun. And when dalawa na lang yung natira. So after that, you have to weigh in the different consequences ng dalawang alternative na yun. Sa alternative 1, ilan ba doon yung positive na consequences na mangyayari if ever na yun yung maging decision mo? And ilan din ba sa number 1 or ilan ba doon sa choice number 1 ang magiging negative na consequences na if ever na yun yung decision na gawin mo. So, ganun din when it comes to alternative number 2 or choice number 2. Ilan ba doon or ilan yung merong positive at ilan yung negative. So, syempre, after weighing in the consequences, hindi naman dapat lagi forever tayo na nag-weigh in ng consequences. Syempre, we have to take action. That's why we have to make a decision. So, a decision must be made at some point. Syempre, tapos ka nang mag-weigh in ng consequences. You've already reviewed and compare if yung different choices that you have or alternatives is applicable ba siya sa moral principle na meron doon. And you've already known or you've already identify the ethical issues na meron doon, and nag-fact check ka na din. So you have to make a decision now. Alin ba doon sa consequences or alin ba doon sa alternatives na yon yung gagawin mo or itetend mo as a solution. Ayan. So with that, we have to do a case analysis. Ayan. Ayan. So this is the case analysis or this is the case that I will be presenting to you. Medyo mahaba-haba siya. So I'll be just sending it or sending the link here. Ayan. So basahin nyo na lang din po siya. Pwede nyo siyang i-pause. Ayan. Ito pa. Okay. So with this case, is gagamitin natin to analyze and to use or make use of the 7-step moral reasoning. So ganito, I will be just using this as an exercise. Ayan. Use this case analysis to exercise or to apply the 7-step moral reasoning. Okay? So, ang gagawin niyo po is you're going to have a case analysis. So, analyze this case using the 7-step moral reasoning. So, kailangan ko makakita ng at least 2 to 3 facts that you've seen or you have read in this case analysis using the 7-step moral using gathering the data. And next one is you have to determine at least one ethical issue. After that is what are the different principles that have bearing in this case. Yan, kayo mag-iisip nun, syempre. And next one is, you have to list down the different alternatives that you're going to do. If you were the doctor, in this case, what would you do in the end? And next one is, um, you have to compare the different aspects or the different alternatives that you have to the principles. And after that is you have to what? Identify. After you identify, you compare. And after you compare, you have to weigh in the consequences. Ilan ba dun sa mga alternatives mo yung may wrong, negative, and positive consequences. And next one is you have to make a decision. Kung ikaw yung nasa sitwasyon, what would you do as a doctor? Ayan. So this would be just an exercise. So, isasama ko siya as part of your project. So, ang hindi magpapasa, walang project. Ayan. So, you may use a piece of paper and submit it on our Google Classroom. So, if there is a question, kindly ask me on our GC or kindly send me a personal message. So, thank you for looking out or thank you for being here with me and see you next week.